Hello everyone, see you on this golden afternoon. Today I'm designing the grass starter for my Sudanese Egyptian Pokemon region, which I'm calling the Alkaya region. Also, I know Owl is the article in Arabic. I know I'm technically saying the Kaya region. If you didn't watch the previous video, I recommend watching it to gain a bit more context on the region idea as a whole. However, if you don't want to, that's fine too. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your free time. If you recall, in the last video, I showed the concept art of the three starters and their theme, which was holiday traditions. Christmas trees for the grass starter, Ramadan iftar cannon for the water starter, Chinese New Year fireworks for the fire starter. The idea for them is that they are Pokemon that people bring with them to the new region when they immigrate to keep their holiday tradition, which involve these Pokemon as part of the celebration. Today we're focusing on the grass starter, its evolution line, and its gimmick form. So, the grass starter is a firefly mixed with an evergreen, the type of the family of trees that pine and fir are in. But it's not a bug type. The main reason is that grass and bug is a astronomically bad type combo for a starter, so the first two stages are mono grass type. Also, I finally named it, and the name is Firefly, a mix of fir, F-I-R, a type of evergreen tree, and firefly. What brought this idea on was looking at the way firefly larvae looked and the way they had segments that reminded me of pinecone. And I got the idea of a bug that has scales it can spread out like a pinecone when it's exposed to dry heat weather. The first design was this, and I used it as concept art, but I was not happy with it. My goal with this redesign was to make it, at the very least, cute to someone who doesn't like bugs. But my test group was my sister, whom I once told to get over her fear of bugs she should try and imagine herself in a closed room filled with butterflies, and she started crying like the word butterfly was an activation phrase. But then I found out this girl doesn't even think Joltik or Snom are cute, so obviously her opinion shouldn't be taken into account in these matters. Regardless, I started by removing the middle pair of legs to make it a quadruped, not that there aren't any four-limbed bug Pokemon, and I also wanted to make the Pokemon head have something protruding from it. It's not like that's a rule for Pokemon, but I just noticed very few Pokemon have smooth head with nothing protruding out of them. I know there are even starters with bald heads, but it just felt like it was missing it. The scale it had on its head was referencing the skull caps that clerics wear in some Christian churches, because if you don't remember, this Pokemon final stage references Christmas trees. I wanted to add more references to things I associated with the holiday. The new way I drew the scales, while it doesn't look like a skull cap anymore, I gave it the little stem part that the skull cap usually has in the form of a pinecone stem. Also, I'm not going to try and attempt to pronounce the actual name of the hat because I keep wanting to read it as Zakshito in my head. Anyway, then I went to draw the scales. I imagine they can open and close like a pinecone when it's dry or when it's damp. I didn't change that much from the initial concept drawing. I simplified the eyes since the body is relatively complex. Furfly, the light pine Pokemon. Furfly are helpful Pokemon. They love accompanying people on walks at night or in dark places. They love music and have an impulse to follow sound-making Pokemon like Chingling, and will flicker the light on their abdomen on the beats of the sound. For the middle stage, I start by trying to make the pupa stage like a Metapod, Kakuna, or a Pupitar, with a pinecone. Then I drew these opening scales and they kinda looked like a tutu to me, so I changed the concept to something related to Christmas, which is Christmas Ballet. Specifically the Nutcracker and the Little Match Girl Ballet. Keep the Little Match Girl in mind for now. So I made it a little ballerina with glowing berries on its back to look like a power source, something similar to a ballerina music box with a wind-up key. I wanted the Pokemon to look elegant and performance ready. Figon, the Pine Pop Ballerina Pokemon. This jolly Pokemon is known for its heartwarming, elegant dances. Countless ballet performances have been written starring this Pokemon. It spins the scales on its waist in spring, dropping seeds for flowers that only bloom in the winter. It is said that whoever plucks these flowers first will have their wish granted. The name comes from Page, Danish for girl, and Cone. Now for the final stage. This was actually the first form I designed. I tried a bunch of different designs for the top half of the Pokemon because the only thing I knew going in was that I wanted to have the top half be a bug with the wings and the bottom half to be an upside down Christmas tree. At first, I struggled a lot with coming up with a good design for the top half. I tried a bunch of different things. I ended up with an ant-shaped head. I made the Pokemon much more wasp-like at the beginning, and it looked too much like Vespiquen, which I didn't want. So I made the base of the body a bit thicker. When I got to the wings, I made them out of leaves and gave them these holes that look like little bug bites to foreshadow something in the gimmick form. Then I move on to the render. Nothing changed that much from the design sketch to the render. I only end up giving them a holly berry design on their neck and chest. Eulaline, the Yule Lug Pokemon. Eulaline produces fruits on its tree bodies that are the size of volleyball. These fruits glow with mysterious power that can heal anyone who consumes them. Popular glowing drinks are made using them. When this Pokemon life is close to its end, its wooden head will turn pale yellow and the star on the end of its tree will die out in a big flash. And now that we're finished with the evolution line, how about a little bedtime story to close things out? The Eulaline and the Girl. Once upon a time, in a region far away, there lived a girl with her father and her Pokemon Eulaline, who passed away very recently. Their family was poor, so her father made the girl go out in the cold winter with no shoes or gloves to sell the last fruit that her Eulaline grew. But the girl had no luck, and after midnight the streets were empty. The girl began getting hungry, knowing that she can't return home to her father after she couldn't manage to sell the fruit. She sat down in an alley between two houses. Her hunger began getting greater and greater, so she took a bite out of the fruit, and in front of her she saw a warm fireplace. She took another bite, and she saw all the toys and gifts she had seen in store windows while she was passing by. Now all for her to play with, and for a moment in her life, she was happy. She enjoyed the warm fire and the toys, but after a while her hunger had returned, and all the wonderful things had disappeared. She looked down at the fruit and saw that she only had a half of it left. So she took another bite, and in front of her appeared her late Eulaline, more beautiful than she had ever seen him. Still, he was the same pale yellow he was when he was dying. So she took another bite, and he returned to his healthy state, and she hugged him as tightly as she could, so he could never leave her again. And she kept hugging him through the cold night until she could not feel her limbs anymore, and she slept hugging him, and that was the last dream she ever had. Move, forbidden fruit. The user Eulaline feeds the target a fruit that puts it to sleep. The target will lose 1/3 of its HP each turn. So the gimmick form, in case you don't remember from the previous video, I wanted to make my own battle gimmick. And the gimmick is the Tall Tale form. I know I said in the previous video I was going to call it the Yarn form, but Pokemon didn't announce Pokemon Friends yet at the time. And I think I'm the only person who cared about this announcement, and only because there was now a thing related to Pokemon called Yarn. Anyway, there are forms Pokemon take when they're affected by the power of a certain legendary Pokemon that plays with the line that separates fiction and reality. Their power transforms certain Pokemon into form they took once upon a time in a fairy tale. New powers awaken within these Pokemon, and they will be able to use a fifth move that can only be used in this form. If you couldn't tell, the fairy tale reference with Eulaline is The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. Now, I don't know if this retelling is too dark for Pokemon, but it's not that much darker than the original, and when I looked up the recommended age for the story, I found some sources that said as young as 5. But also, I shouldn't worry too much since this isn't an official Pokemon game, but then again, multiple Pokemon games have side stories about ghost girls. Anyway, I want the render for this form to be done in a really different style than the official Pokemon art style, one with a lot of hatching. If you're not familiar with the original story of the Little Match Girl, in the original story, the girl lights matches in an alley and sees both the beautiful Christmas tree and her late grandmother, and then she goes to heaven with her grandmother's soul. For the design itself, the design is reminiscent of an angel, but instead of giving it feather wings, I gave it these wings made of cutout paper, like those little paper angels that people put on Christmas trees as decorations. Eulaline, Tall Tale form. Eulaline has taken the form they once took in a fairy tale. This Pokemon comforts those who have been forsaken by the world and will keep them fed and warm. Once Eulaline enters this form, it will no longer feel pain and will do whatever it can to protect its trainer, even at the cost of its own frail body. But that does it for this video. Tell me your thoughts about this Pokemon line and the gimmick, and if you have any ideas for Pokemon you think could work for the region and its theme. The theme is reality and fiction, by the way. Tell me, I love hearing what other people think of my art. So anyway, I'll see you next time when you visit me in Wonderland. Bye! Hello. I managed to finish this video much faster than the last one, probably because this one only has a total of 4 main drawings. I forgot to mention in the actual video, but the next Pokemon video is going to be the Fire Starter. Whether that will be the next video or the one right after it is not decided yet, but the video will probably take a while to come out as school is starting soon and I won't have the same amount of time to dedicate toward making videos for this channel. But if you decide to subscribe and wait, I hope it will be worth it. Anyway, bye bye!